This legacy hit me probably around 15, I want to say 15, when it really set in. Like when my grandma sat me down and talked to me, told her he was going to be, she knew it was going to happen. She was purposefully not by her husband's side that night. When you have such a history with Diddy, who's being honored, what is a moment that you look back on him in the past and think, man, if you could have told us then we'd be at a business party, he was going to be like, we would have been shook. We just out here doing what we do. So Biggie's son, CJ Wallace, is saying some things that have people seriously talking about his mom, Faith Evans, and her connection to, according to what's going around. CJ basically hinted that Faith might have betrayed Biggie and that had something to do with it. Now, CJ has always kept things low-key, but sources close to him are saying he never believed the official narrative behind Biggie's death and suspected Diddy had something to do with it. According to these sources, CJ believes Big was surrounded by fake love and that some of those people were inside his own house. Then there's the Stevie J angle. Remember when Faith married him out of nowhere back in 2018? Well, CJ was not happy about it, and he publicly talked about being hurt that his mom married Stevie. Faith didn't even tell CJ she was getting married. In fact, he found out about it the same time we all did, on social media. What makes this even messier is that Stevie J is actually CJ's godson. Now, if you've been following all the Diddy mess lately, then you already know Stevie J wasn't just some random dude. He was super close to Diddy for years and helped build the whole bad boy sound back in the 90s. But here's where it gets crazy. Rumors about Stevie being on the DL have been around forever, and allegedly, Stevie was one of the guys who used to take part freak-off parties. It doesn't stop there. Stevie stayed close with even when things started falling apart. In fact, when the feds raided house last March, they found Stevie staying at one of his cribs. So now, connect the dots. CJ is hurt that Faith married a guy from Inner Circle, and he's saying Biggie was betrayed by people in his own home. It's not hard to see why some folks think he's pointing the finger without actually saying names. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, because CJ himself has faced rumors about his sexuality, and some sources have even speculated that this had something to do with and Stevie J being around him growing up. No, some blogs are kind of said some mean things about your son and tried to say that he was gay. How do you feel about that? Don't I think it's rude and people just insensitive? These blogs just talk so about it. Do you have any response to that? No, I don't really feel that way about it. We know where he is. If he was, I would support him and love him just the same though. So now the question is, did Diddy somehow force Faith to marry Stevie to keep her from talking about Biggie's death? Was Faith blackmailed, or was she just playing both sides the whole time? Let's get into these receipts, y'all. No, my father is looking down on all of us tonight in all of this love and support. My sister and I will continue to carry on his name with tremendous pride and live my life by his words. Give it up for CJ. So there's been talk going around that CJ Wallace, Biggie and Faith Evans' son, has been quietly pulling away from his mom, and the rumor is that CJ's been keeping his distance ever since stories started resurfacing that Faith may have known more about Biggie's death than she ever let on. Some folks online are saying Faith was way closer to Diddy behind the scenes, and allegedly, she knew the night Biggie got killed wasn't just bad luck but that it was a setup. People are pointing out how weird it was that Big didn't want to go to LA in the first place because he knew how tense things were after Pac died, but Diddy kept pushing him to go there. Jaguar Wright even claimed that Diddy directly told Faith that Biggie was going to die that night. Ask me how much different Faith's life, her whole life, look. Diddy told her he was going to kill Biggie. She knew it was going to happen. She was purposefully not by her husband's side that night it happened. And she was told she had to lie about it. Now, mix that with Faith being tied to both later Stevie J, and the fact that Faith still hasn't publicly condemned, and the pieces start to look really shady. Fans also noticed that CJ rarely posts with or about Faith anymore, hasn't celebrated her publicly in years, and keeps things really surface level when it comes to her. What's also interesting is Stevie J's role in all this because, as Jaguar pointed out, Faith and Stevie never made sense as a couple the same way Faith and Biggie didn't make sense. And according to Jaguar, Faith was basically used by Diddy as a pawn so he could get rid of both Pac and Biggie and keep profiting off of Biggie's music. Let's be honest about Faith Evans. How does a woman with that much talent end up married to somebody like Stevie J? Really? Or maybe years ago, you decided to be a hip-hop plant because you didn't think your light-skinned face was ever going to get a real shot. And so you took that shot. You were a single mom, and your back was up against the wall. Lie held up until that boy turned 18, and he started having ideas of what he wanted to do, what he inherited, because the paperwork was set up for Faith to not be able to see $1 from Biggie's estate unless it was for little Christopher. And she only had one child with Christopher. The other children who required taking care of and feeding and all of them couldn't be fed off of Christopher Wallace's money. They weren't his kids. See how that works, right? Didn't make any sense, her and Biggie. It didn't make any sense to anyone. It shouldn't have made any sense to them because they were married in 10 days. It's funny when you ask Faith how long her and Biggie was together before they got married, the story changes every time. Not saying that she didn't develop feelings for him. I'm not saying that she didn't care about the father of her son. I'm saying she was hired for one job. Her being involved with Pac in the midst of all of that, but she didn't know Pac was Pac? I mean, come on. None of it makes sense. What really does make sense is that Diddy has had a long career of using women to trap men into making them do what he wants to do or using them to move them out the way. How is Faith Evans any different than Lauren London? Now, if you were around during that time, then you know Biggie and Faith really never made sense, and she even wrote in her book that they were never together and he was always allegedly cheating on her. Of course, that doesn't mean Faith actually set him up to be killed, but it raises some questions about her connection to Diddy and how much she really knew about Diddy's alleged plan to get rid of Biggie.